Two parts to today, adding SOR codes to jobs and splitting of jobs into work orders. I've combined the two topics because they're really closely related, and usually people do both the tasks at the same time just because they sort of go hand in hand. You may well know that on the job entry screen, as you create your job and you hit continue to save it, there's an additional screen that can pop up. Not everyone's system has this, and it's the screen that you can see in front of you. It's where you can add job lines or sales codes or SOR codes. Depends on how you word those in your company. And you can add the codes to the job before you start. So in certain organizations, you might get a list of codes from your client. Say a housing association could send you 10 codes on the email to say these are the codes you're doing on this job. We give you this screen as an extra one that you can pop them on there. Now, you can also, once you've saved the job, as I'm sure many of you know, there's this line here. If there are no sales on the job, you just basically click where it says click here and you add your sales codes to the job at that point. However, if your client sends you 20, 30, 100 more codes, I mean, you could have this for, say, for example, it could be a huge void job in a housing association property. Or perhaps you're doing repetitive tasks. I've put there a kitchen install. You could be doing kitchen installs for an entire street of houses. Well, you're going to be using pretty much the same SOR codes in every single job. And if you've got 20 codes to put on for 30 properties, it's quite a daunting task to have to keep doing that and quite repetitive. So you might want to do it a little quicker. So I'm going to just come out of my little presentation now and go into something which you should all be familiar with, but this is our demo system. So obviously I'm not going to do this on a live customer system because that wouldn't be very fair for data protection. However, this is our demo system and hopefully you should see some similarities between what you're used to using. The bulk uploading of codes is something that's been around in our system for a long, long time, but it seems that a lot of people don't really know it's there. So I always try and mention it in training sessions when we go live, but then everyone forgets about it because they're that busy going live that then the time you come back to it, you've forgotten it existed. Before I show you how you do it, some people don't also know. If I just pop into a job, this is one I was playing with earlier. If I scroll down to our sales lines bit here, you can see there's 92 results in the sales lines. So there's a lot of codes there. Did you know you can export them? I'm sure you may have spotted it, but you can export that list. So when you click on that, that will download everything you see in front of you there into a spreadsheet. So if you've got a job you've just done with 92 codes on it, and you want to recreate those 92 codes on another job, you don't need to sit there manually typing them. You can download that file, which then, as it opens on the wrong monitor, of course, what you get is something that looks a little bit like that. I appreciate that's quite small, but you get the idea. So that you could then take this to use with your bulk upload, having also edited it a little bit. So that's the bit I'm going to show you now. Something else that I've got to show you. Often your client will probably send over something that looks a little bit like this to you and ask you to use this as your basis of billing for jobs and issuing the work to your engineers. So this is a full SOR list. I think this is NatFed 7.2. This is a list that we recently imported into one of our client systems. And as you can see, if I scoot like all the way down to the bottom, usually there's many thousands. Yeah, nearly 3,500 codes there. So preparing an import file for something based upon a codes list, you might have that. Well, that's quite hard to go through, filtering for each individual code. And also, your client may well send you this in a PDF file, could send you in an email. How do we get those into the system quickly? In true Blue Peter fashion, here is a job I prepared earlier. So if I just scroll down, we can see there are no sales on this job. So to do this task, what we do, we click as if we were going to add some, and rather than just manually typing into this box here and picking the list, we have got at the top a bulk importer button. So when we click in there, this loads this little screen here, where from this, you can see there's an upload button, and then there's a download template, and there's a file picker. There's also some sort of requirements here that give you a clue as to what you'll be doing. But first of all, the very first time you do this, you'll download your template. And that looks a little bit like, not like that, like that. So bear with me whilst I zoom in, because I appreciate I have my monitor set quite small. So that is the format required to import SOR codes. So nothing difficult. And you can see in brackets, there are optional. In fact, the only two that are actually required are the SOR code there in column B and the number of the order quantity of that code that you require. You don't actually need to fill in the rest of these. You can, and the reason they're optional is because if you have got a list of codes that you want to put in, if they don't exist in the system already, the system will create them. A little bit like would happen if you had an interface to a client system where they send you the jobs as well. Those codes would get created on the fly by this importer. However, you've got your SOR code column there and your order quantity there. So if I go back to the system, you can see here that this is what this was talking about. This is telling you what the sorts of information you need. Well, if I show you an example one that I prepared earlier, so that you don't need to sit there watching me do copy and paste, all we do is we take some information from wherever you've got your SOR codes, you pop the code in and the quantity. Now I've also added in some extra words to describe the location of what we're doing as well. So like we can see, I'll just zoom in again, I do apologize. Down there, we've got tasks that are to do with bedroom 1. These ones are all to do with bedroom 2. The reason we've got this column, it's the section description. That is the often captioned as task in the SOR fields. And the reason we have that, that allows you as a user to see which room it relates to or which location in the property it relates to. But also on the mobile app, we merge that with the SOR code. So if you're sending out a code and a description that could be done in literally any room of a house, by putting the words in here, that merges it with it. So the guy knows that he's doing this in the shed and at the front door. So what we do, we take our import file from our client or from our list that we've got wherever it is. Might be you've downloaded it from a previous job. We take the codes, pop them in there, and then you pop the number you need. And that's literally all you need. I've done this column as well. So once you've prepared your file, obviously you save it. And the key thing is it has to be saved as a CSV file. So that's really key. And then all we do is we go to our screen that we were in before and we browse for our file, or you can do what I think a lot of people don't always know you can do, is you pick that up, place it onto your web browser, and you can drop it on that button there, and that's now got that teed up ready to go. And then all I do is I hit upload. We get a little message to say it happened successfully, and we then are in the screen of editing sales lines, and you can see there that the file I've just imported has plonked in all those codes onto that job. I could go down and make changes to this at any point, remove some if I didn't need them. That's quite easy to do, but usually you just hit continue, which takes you back to your job sheet, where, as we can see now, the estimated value of our job has taken the sum total of the ordered values of the codes I've just imported, which are all down there. So you can see I imported all those codes. Let's go right to the bottom. There's our totals, and we can now use that as the basis of our job. So as you can see, bulk importing of SOR codes, really straightforward. And that is literally the process. There's nothing more to it than that. It's a case of taking the file from your client, putting it with two columns, essentially, the code and the quantity, and uploading it. And the thing you can do really with this is that once you've got, say, a common batch, let's say you're doing void properties all the time, and it's maybe you've got 4 styles of void property you do, you would just simply create 4 spreadsheet files ready to go with the codes and the quantities. And it might be that your QSs just tweak the quantities every now and again for different jobs, because obviously things change. But that wouldn't be as onerous a task as manually typing in 92 codes every time you need to do a job. So that's that. So that's part 1. Really easy. So part 2, the splitting of a job into work orders. Right. Well, you've probably all spotted you've got this split button on the top of a job sheet, and unless you've used it, you probably will never even know what it does. Um, Usually, when I'm out training people on a very new client implementation, I discuss the split job button and I present it as a button that's to be used where you've got a large-ish job that crosses multiple trades. So it could be anything from fitting a kitchen, fitting a bathroom, doing a refit of a void property. It could be a shop fitting task where you're ripping out a newsagents and redoing all the counters and all the fridges. It could be building an extension to a house or even building a new house. I'd go as far as to say perhaps building a new house might be a project, but we'll see how we go with that. Um, it's where you cross multiple trades. So I like to use the bathroom analogy and the kitchen one when I'm doing training because I think it's a bit smaller and people can see it. So if you've got a task where the main job, you'll get one job from your client, which is fit a new kitchen. Well, if you're doing that, you're going to want to send a clearance team in, possibly first of all to rip out the old one. Probably send an electrician and a gas engineer to make sure all the electrics and the gas are made safe before you start doing anything else. Maybe that happens before the clearance. I don't know. Then you're going to send somebody in to do, I don't know, maybe some plastering. Certainly, well, maybe the first fix electrics and plumbing first, then some plastering. Then you might get a tiler in. Then you're going to have a joiner in to do the cupboards. And then you're going to get different people in at different stages within this project. Well, having a single job, a bit like this one with the void works with 92 codes on it and a load of stuff that's got to be done, it can become really unwieldy. And we've had some customers where what they do is they just simply issue this job now to whoever. So they issue it to the joiner and say, go and fit the kitchen cupboards. But on their job that they get on the mobile app, they're getting all sorts about doing bathrooms and bedroom one and renewing floorboards, which wasn't why they were going. So the thing we can do with the split job button is make the whole process a little bit more manageable for everybody. So I'll show you how it works. We hit split and we get taken into this screen where you get the overall job description. But this is where we are going to create what is known as a work order or the split job. And this is the description of the split job that you're going to give out. So really, this depends on the granularity you want to give out for your engineers, of course. You could just give them a job C lines description where you then give them a load of SOR codes, or you could be quite descriptive and give them some actual notes if you wanted. But let's say, for example, I wanted to give out my codes that I can see I've got ready for me. This is the shed works. I'm going to give it to a joiner. I'm going to do that. And obviously you can provide a date. So I want them to start work on Monday. The job notes that exist on the main job get pulled through to this screen. And you have the option to copy these jobs, these attachments rather, to the job. So if you wanted to send them all because they were relevant, then that's fine. If you didn't, you could just simply copy the one that's relevant to this particular task. We then pull through all the SOR codes that exist on the job. So you can then choose which one of them you want, which however many you want to give out to your engineer. So I want to give him that one, that one, that one, and then maybe the next few because they all relate to the front shed. There we go. So as you can see, what I've done is I've pressed the add button and it's popped them all into this table here. Now, if there was something else you wanted to give him that wasn't on this list, you can by adding a new SOR code at this stage. If you've made a mistake, you can delete them, that's no problem. But essentially what you've done is you've said this is shed works for a joiner starting on Monday. Here's a picture of the shed we're having a look at, and there's our codes I want you to do. Press save. And once that's done, you can see there this, I'm going to call that purple, but I don't know, who knows. That section there, our work orders. The little sub-report exists in a few areas. You can click on that, and that will show you all sorts of things to do with the jobs. But you can then carry on working your way down the list. So let's say, for example, we can see the ones I've already given out. We've highlighted them. Let's go with the electric cupboard. So I'm just going to do a couple. I'm not going to go down all the 92, by the way. You'd be pleased to hear. Oh, an elk. Interesting. Electrician. Okay, so our electrical works. I want to give him that code and that one and that one. And then I press save. See what's happening now, can't we? We've got 2 work orders set up. If I want to add a third one, just because I always like to do things when I've got these sorts of things in threes, I'm going to do the one for the bathroom down there. I'm going to assume it's a plumbing works. And they're going to, oh, there we go. Told you. Thank you, dogs. Bathroom works. There we go. One. I've given a few codes. I won't do them all. You can get the idea. I press save. So now what we've got is we've got 3 work orders set, one for a joiner, one for an electrical works, and one for a plumber. Obviously, I could keep going with that. I'm going to stop at this point because you don't need to keep seeing that. You get the idea, I'm sure. We press continue. So what's happened now is we've been taken back to the job sheet. And on our job sheet, there is this section here for work orders where you can click into each of those and you get a job sheet that looks like a job sheet, but it's the work order sheet, where this shows you the work order for shed works with its own little job number and the SOR codes just for that. And the buttons at the top here, very similar to what you'd expect to see on a normal job. You can issue the works order out just as you would normally, like that. So that work order is now at a status of issued. You'll notice on this top bar of the work order, we've got the job that it relates to and the status it relates to. And you can click back there to take you back into the main job. So as we can see now, this one is at a status of issued. These 2 are awaiting allocation still because I've not handed them out to an engineer, which is why our main job goes to a status of multi-status. So where these go across multiple statuses, depending on where they're all at, this will be at multi-status. If these were all issued, the main job would go to status issued. So what happens is this stays at multi-status right up until the point that everyone's done. So you flow through each of the jobs as you would normally, well, I say jobs, work orders. These will get done as they do by your operatives, either subcontractors, subcontract POs. You might issue them to the mobile app so they can complete them. You'll get your photos, you'll get your notes, you'll get your labour costs. Everything will come back on the work orders. But once that happens, those costs get fed through to the main job. So I'll show that by just doing a record visit in the back office here for this one. So I'm not going to give it to a subcontractor. I'm going to give it to, does Ian still exist? Yes, he does. I'm going to give it to Ian, and I'm going to say that he attended site between 8 and 10. And he, whilst was there, delivered everything. So I'm just going to say he completed everything. I got a complete. I'll do. Yes, I'm fine with that. Thank you. There we go. So that work order is now complete because I've just recorded a visit to say the engineer's been out. The sales lines, non-outstanding because I said that our engineer did them all. And we've got some labour costs down here on the work order. If I go back to our main job now, we can see if I scroll down to our financial summaries that we've got some labour costs pulling through now, and we've got total sales of £115, and that's because the front shed works that have been delivered so far, these codes here, are the ones that are now the actual sales we've delivered. So you can see already we're pulling through the estimated sales value of all of those codes added up, but we've delivered 115 quid's worth by that first split job. So all the financials come through from the split jobs and appear on the main job itself. I won't repeat that again for these, but you can see now what's happened is that one there for the joiner is at status complete. Well, because that's complete, we don't think anymore if anything happens with that job, we think it's done. Obviously, you would move it on yourself, but basically it's complete. So these 2 are awaiting allocation, which means the main job is now awaiting allocation. If I was to issue this one out to any random person now like this, then the main job goes back to multi-status until something happens with this one. And as I explained before, you've got the option to add notes and attachments to the split job only. so that if you wanted to send a diagram or something or a photograph out to the engineer, you could do. You can obviously edit the statuses yourselves. You can use the communications module to send out an appointment SMS, for example, or anything like that if you wanted to. There's everything works just as it should do, and there's even the ability to, I think we relatively recently added this, the ability to raise purchase orders from work orders as well. So split jobs are a really useful way of taking what would normally be quite an unwieldy job, because as you imagine, we've got pictures coming through from all sorts. Engineers might take 20 pictures on a void job. If you've got multiple days worth of work across multiple weeks, loads of different guys, you're going to end up with a job sheet that's really full of everything, and it'll be quite hard to see what's going on, where you've got now a little bit of a snapshot view of the individual tasks.